You ever notice how quickly peace can disappear? One moment you're calm, the next someone says something, does something, and it's like they reached into your chest and twisted something that shouldn't be touched. You feel it rise, heat, tension, that urge to clap back. But let me tell you something that'll shift everything. Nobody has the power to disturb you unless you hand it to them. Because here's the truth. What bothers you controls you. The moment you react, you've declared you're bigger than me. And that's not power, that's permission. You just gave a stranger a key to your inner peace. But what if you didn't? What if you learned to pause, to breathe, to see their words for what they are? A reflection, not a revelation. When people lash out, it's rarely about you. It's a confession of where they are inside. Angry people project anger. Insecure people poke at others to feel taller. Bitter people spread bitterness like it's perfume. You can't absorb that unless you open your spirit to it. See, peace isn't something you chase, it's something you protect. When you stop giving people emotional access to your center, you stop being moved by what's temporary, you don't become cold, you become grounded. You stop needing people to act right so you can feel right, and that's where freedom begins. The next time someone tries to provoke you, don't meet them at their level. Observe them from your stillness. Smile, because you understand what they don't anger is a sign of captivity, and you've been set free. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You choose your peace over their performance. You understand that not every fire deserves your breath. You realize that silence isn't weakness. It's command. You're not suppressing emotion. You're mastering response. When you're no longer triggered, people will call you mysterious. They'll say you've changed, but you haven't changed. You've just stopped dancing to their rhythm. You found your own. You become untouchable not when life gets easier, but when your spirit stops flinching. That's the mark of someone who knows who they are, who doesn't need to prove it, who understands that calm is the highest form of power. Because the moment you realize peace is your natural state, you'll stop letting anyone rent space in your mind for free. You'll see anger for what it truly is, a distraction from purpose. And when purpose takes over, nothing and no one can bother you again. People's behavior is a mirror of their inner world, not a measure of your worth. When someone disrespects you, criticizes you unfairly, or treats you coldly, it's tempting to take it personally. But the truth is, every person you meet is acting from the condition of their own heart, not from an accurate reflection of who you are. What they say about you reveals more about the lens they see through than about your reality. When you understand this, something powerful happens. You stop trying to decode every attitude or explain every rejection because you realize it was never really about you to begin with. Hurt people project hurt. Angry people spread anger. Insecure people look for ways to make others feel small so they can feel significant again. That energy they give off, it's the echo of their private battles. You just happen to be standing close enough to hear it. When you stop confusing their inner storms for your identity, you reclaim your emotional freedom. You no longer absorb their chaos. You simply observe it. You start to see their behavior as information, not judgment. If someone lies to you, it doesn't mean you're unworthy of truth. It means they're afraid of honesty. If someone mocks you, it's not because you lack value. It's because they feel unseen. Their reactions are reflections of their own state of mind. The mature soul learns to see through that, not in arrogance, but in compassion. You begin to look at people and think, that's not about me. That's about where they are right now. And with that single thought, you remove the sting. This doesn't make you numb. It makes you wise. You stop internalizing every negative glance, every sharp word, every silence. You understand that others are living through filters, pain, fear, ego, trauma. And sometimes you're simply the mirror that triggers what they haven't healed. When you learn this, you stop reacting and start responding with grace. The moment you stop letting others' behavior define your mood, you step into emotional authority. You don't need to fight for validation or prove your worth. Their opinion loses weight because you've anchored yourself in truth. Who you are is not determined by how others treat you. Their mirror may be cracked, but your reflection remains whole. Emotional detachment is not indifference. It's disciplined peace. It's the art of standing in the middle of noise and not letting it reach your spirit. It's not about building walls or pretending not to care. It's about knowing where your peace ends and where someone else's chaos begins. Most people confuse detachment with coldness, but in truth, it's the purest form of love and self-control. When you're emotionally detached, you stop allowing every emotion, every mood, every person to pull you like a puppet on invisible strings. You begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. To detach doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't drown in what you feel. It means you experience emotion fully, but you remain aware that you are not the emotion itself. Anger, sadness, frustration, they pass through you, but they don't define you. This discipline of peace allows you to respond instead of react, to reflect instead of retaliate. You start realizing that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, and you don't have to prove yourself in every misunderstanding. You value your serenity too much to trade it for momentary satisfaction. Emotional detachment teaches you to pause, to breathe before you speak, to understand before you judge, to observe before you assume. You begin to see that peace is not something people can give you or take away from you. It's something you maintain through awareness. You stop being controlled by situations because you've learned that inner stability is more powerful than external approval. When someone tries to provoke you, detachment allows you to look at them and see their pain, not your insult. When life throws challenges at you, detachment reminds you that storms are temporary, but your composure doesn't have to be. It's a quiet strength that refuses to let emotion dictate direction. It's not apathy, it's clarity. You're no longer desperate for people to understand you, agree with you, or treat you right, because you've built your foundation on something unshakable within. True detachment doesn't distance you from life. It connects you more deeply to it. You move with grace instead of reaction, compassion instead of anger, wisdom instead of impulse. You become unbothered not because you don't care, but because you finally do. About your peace, your purpose, and your growth. You don't rise above others by reacting. You rise above by remaining still. The moment you react to chaos, you become part of it. When someone throws negativity your way, their intention is often to pull you into their storm. They want a response, a reaction, a piece of your calm, but real power lies in restraint, in the ability to feel everything and still choose silence. Stillness is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the point where ego surrenders to wisdom and impulse bows to understanding. Reacting is easy. Anyone can shout, defend, or argue, but remaining still takes strength. It's an act of trust. Trust that truth doesn't need your voice to stand tall, that dignity doesn't need proof to exist. Stillness says, I'm not here to match your energy, I'm here to preserve mine. And that's when you begin to rise not above people, but above patterns. You stop repeating the cycles of reaction that once drained you, and you start moving from purpose instead of emotion. Stillness doesn't mean you're passive or powerless. It means you've learned to respond with wisdom instead of reflex. You no longer give people the satisfaction of controlling your state. You realize that silence can be the loudest statement, and that peace can be the sharpest defense. In moments when anger invites you in, you breathe, you observe, and you let your composure speak for you. That's where growth happens, in the pause between what they did and how you choose to respond. The truth is, reaction often comes from insecurity, but stillness comes from confidence. It's a quiet knowing that not everything deserves your energy. You stop rushing to correct people's perception because you understand that time and truth will handle what words can't. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop letting emotion drive the narrative. When you remain still, you disarm chaos. You remove its fuel. You refuse to dance to the rhythm of provocation. That's when your spirit starts operating on a higher frequency, one untouched by noise, untouched by pettiness, untouched by ego. You rise not by proving your power, but by mastering your peace. And that stillness becomes your strength, the kind that can't be shaken, even when the world around you trembles. Your energy is sacred. Don't trade it for the cheap thrill of argument. Every time you engage in unnecessary conflict, you spend a piece of yourself that you can't get back. Energy is your most valuable currency, and yet most people waste it trying to win battles that don't matter, defending themselves to people who've already made up their minds, or reacting to opinions that carry no weight in their destiny. The wise understand this. They protect their energy like it's treasure. They know not every disagreement deserves a response, not every insult deserves attention, and not every invitation to drama deserves attendance. Arguing might feel satisfying in the moment. It feeds the ego, gives you a temporary sense of control, but it drains your spirit. You walk away empty, frustrated, replaying words you wish you hadn't said. Peace, on the other hand, leaves you full. When you choose not to engage, you're not backing down, you're stepping up. You're saying, My focus is too precious, my peace too valuable, and my purpose too important to be wasted here. That decision comes from maturity, from understanding that silence is sometimes the loudest form of strength. When you guard your energy, you start noticing how little things affect you. Gossip loses its grip. Negativity rolls off you. People who thrive on conflict no longer find fuel in your calm. They grow uncomfortable with your lack of reaction because you're not feeding the fire they are. You've learned that peace is not passive, it's protective. It's the deliberate choice to stay aligned with your higher purpose rather than get entangled in lower distractions. Your energy shapes your reality. The more you pour it into arguments, the less you have for growth, creativity, love, and healing. Every time you take the bait of someone's anger, you delay your own progress. So you learn to walk away not because you're weak, but because you've outgrown the need to be right. You value your energy too much to waste it proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Real power is quiet. It's in the person who can stay calm when provoked, who can smile when insulted, who can walk away without explanation. That's someone who knows their energy is sacred and refuses to trade it for anything less than peace. No one can pull you into chaos unless there's chaos within you. The world outside can only touch what exists inside. When someone's words sting, when their actions disturb your peace, it's not their power, it's your openness to be moved by them. People will always behave unpredictably, speak carelessly, and project their pain, but what they reach in you determines how deeply it affects you. If there's still insecurity, pride, or unresolved anger, their energy finds a place to land. But when your inner world is calm, their chaos has nowhere to stick, it bounces off your peace like dust on glass. Inner peace is not about controlling your environment. It's about mastering your inner response. You can't stop people from being negative, unfair, or cruel, but you can stop them from finding a home inside your emotions. When you heal what's within, you stop reacting to what's without. You start seeing conflict not as an attack, but as a mirror. It shows you where you're still reactive, where your ego still lives, where you've yet to surrender. The moment you realize that triggers are teachers, not enemies, you begin to grow beyond them. When someone tries to pull you into their storm, through gossip, argument, or manipulation, you have two choices: match their energy or maintain your stillness. Matching them may feel justified, but it drags you down to the same level you once outgrew. Stillness, on the other hand, is strength disguised as restraint. It says, I don't need to participate in your storm to prove my calm. That's where true freedom begins, when you no longer get pulled by what's beneath you. You can't stop waves from crashing, but you can learn to float above them. Peace is built through practice. Pausing before reacting, breathing before speaking, praying before deciding. The more you master your inner space, the less power the outside world holds over you. You begin to see that no insult, no criticism, no rejection can move what's anchored in truth. When there's peace within, chaos loses its invitation. People may still try to provoke you, but you'll simply watch it pass. You won't take it personally because it's not yours to carry. The storm may surround you, but it won't live in you. And that's the mark of someone truly free. Stillness is the loudest answer to noise. In a world that thrives on reaction, stillness is rebellion. It's the refusal to let the chaos of others dictate the rhythm of your soul. When everything around you demands a response, anger, gossip, provocation, stillness becomes your shield. It's not silence born of fear, it's silence rooted in power. It's the quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove, defend, or explain. The one who remains still in the midst of noise has already won the battle no one else even knew was happening. Stillness speaks volumes without saying a word. It tells the world, you can't shake me. It tells the provoker, your energy doesn't reach me. It tells your own ego, we don't move unless it matters. The person who can stay calm when others demand chaos holds the highest form of control, not over others, but over themselves. It's not that you don't care, it's that you've learned when to care and how to protect what matters most, your peace. Stillness doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means responding to it with wisdom, not impulse. It's the moment you stop feeding noise with more noise. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you reclaim your authority. You remind yourself that you are not a product of the storm. You are the observer of it. You begin to notice that when you stop reacting, situations start losing their power. The noise fades not because it disappears, but because you've stopped giving it your attention. Most people misunderstand stillness as inaction, but it's actually one of the most intentional things you can practice. It requires awareness, restraint, and faith. Faith that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. That justice doesn't always arrive through argument, and that peace doesn't depend on circumstance. The one who is still understands that everything doesn't need a reaction to be resolved. Sometimes it needs presence, not participation. When you become still, you start hearing things you couldn't before: clarity, intuition, divine guidance. The world may be loud, but wisdom whispers. And it's in stillness that you finally hear it. You stop fighting noise with noise, and you start mastering peace through presence. That calm becomes your language, and it speaks louder than any reaction ever could. When you stop needing others to behave, you start mastering your own state. Most frustration in life comes not from what people do, but from our expectations of how they should be. We want them to be kinder, more respectful, more understanding, more like us. And when they aren't, we feel disturbed. But freedom begins the moment you stop waiting for people to act right before you decide to feel right. The truth is, people will always be inconsistent, unpredictable, and flawed. You can't control their choices, but you can control your response. And that control is where peace begins. Expectations are invisible chains. They keep you tied to disappointment because you've made your happiness conditional on someone else's behavior. But when you let go of that need, you reclaim your power. You no longer depend on their tone, their approval, or their reaction to determine your mood. You rise above the emotional roller coaster because you've learned that your peace is not up for negotiation. You stop saying, if they change, I'll be okay. And you start saying, even if they don't, I'm still okay. That shift is emotional maturity. It's the quiet realization that peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you decide on. When you release the need for others to behave a certain way, you become grounded. You begin to see people through understanding instead of expectation. You recognize that everyone acts according to their awareness, their pain, their growth. Some people simply can't give you what they've never learned to give themselves. And instead of taking that personally, you extend grace. That's strength, not weakness. It's the kind of inner stability that keeps you calm in situations where you once would have broken. Mastering your own state means becoming the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature of your soul, regardless of the climate around you. You no longer absorb the moods, anger, or energy of others. You decide what enters your space and what doesn't. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. When you reach that level of detachment, no one's behavior can rob you of your center. You'll still care, but you won't cling. You'll still love, but you won't lose yourself. And in that mastery, you'll find the kind of peace that nothing and no one can take away. Anger loses its power when you stop identifying with the insult. The moment someone says something hurtful, your ego wants to step in. It wants to defend, to correct, to prove. But the truth is, words only cut deep when they touch something inside you that already doubts itself. When you know who you are, insults lose their meaning. They become noise instead of wounds. The only reason anger rises is because we attach our identity to what's been said. We think they disrespected me. But what they actually did was reveal their own inner conflict. Your peace breaks only when you start believing that their perception has the authority to define you. When you stop identifying with the insult, you realize that not every comment is personal. People speak from projection, not perception. Yeah. Their words are reflections of their insecurities, their fears, their pain. And when you truly understand that, anger turns into compassion. You no longer hear an attack. You hear a cry for healing. You don't have to meet it with defense. You meet it with understanding. That's how you win, not by fighting back, but by refusing to be pulled into the emotional gravity of someone else's wound. Anger feels powerful in the moment, but it always drains you afterward. It burns energy that could have been used for growth, clarity, or creativity. When you let an insult define your response, you hand over control of your emotional state. But when you pause, breathe, and remember who you are, you reclaim that control instantly. The insult may still echo, but it doesn't land. It loses its sting because it no longer finds a home within you. The more you practice detachment, the lighter you become. You stop collecting offense like it's proof of worth. You stop replaying words to validate your pain. You begin to see that true confidence doesn't need defense. It rests in awareness. You understand that no opinion can change what's true about you. When someone insults you and you remain still, that's not weakness, that's mastery. You've risen above the level where words can reach. The insult fades, the anger dissolves, and what remains is strength, because no one can make you feel small once you've remembered how vast you truly are. Grace under pressure is proof of spiritual maturity. Anyone can be kind when life feels easy, but true growth is revealed in how you carry yourself when the world presses against you. Pressure exposes character. It doesn't create it, it reveals it. When you're tested, when things don't go your way, when people mistreat you or misunderstand you, that's when your inner strength either collapses or shines. Grace in those moments is not weakness, it's mastery of the soul. It means you've learned to anchor yourself so deeply in peace that chaos no longer dictates your behavior. Grace is the ability to stay calm when your emotions beg you to react. It's choosing patience when impatience feels justified, choosing silence when words would only deepen the wound, choosing understanding when anger would be easier. It's the quiet power of knowing that not every battle deserves your energy and not every storm requires your panic. When you walk in grace, you stop moving with emotion and start moving with intention. You're guided by wisdom, not impulse. You understand that your composure isn't for their sake, it's for your own protection. Grace under pressure doesn't mean you ignore pain or pretend everything is fine. It means you face difficulty with faith, not fear. You know that every challenge carries a lesson, and every conflict is an opportunity to grow. You learn to respond from peace instead of reacting from pride. You understand that losing your temper doesn't solve the problem, it only multiplies it. So you stay centered, you breathe, you observe. That's the strength of someone who's no longer controlled by circumstance. People often mistake grace for passivity, but it's the opposite. It's discipline in action. It's the conscious choice to stay aligned with your higher self, even when the lower self screams for attention. It's refusing to let bitterness steal your softness or pain harden your heart. Grace means standing firm, not because life is gentle, but because you are grounded. When you master grace under pressure, you no longer chase peace, you embody it. You become a calm presence in a loud world, a steady light in uncertain times. You stop being moved by storms because you've become the stillness within them. That's not just strength, that's spiritual maturity. True strength is silent. It's not proven through control, but through release. The world teaches us that strength is loud, forceful, and dominant. That to be strong means to always have the last word, to never bend, to never let go. But real power doesn't need to announce itself. It moves quietly, like peace after a storm. True strength is found in restraint, in the ability to walk away when your ego wants to fight, to forgive when you'd rather resent, to surrender when control would only cause more pain. It's the kind of power that doesn't seek to dominate, but to understand, to protect, to heal. Releasing is harder than holding on. It takes courage to let go of what hurt you, of what you can't fix, of who won't change. But every time you release, you rise. You stop clinging to outcomes, people, or validation, and you begin trusting that what's meant for you will never need to be forced. The world around you might see that as weakness. They'll say you gave up. But only those who have fought their inner battles know how much strength it takes to release with grace. Control feels safe because it gives the illusion of order, but it drains your soul. It ties you to constant tension, constant worry. True strength doesn't come from tightening your grip. It comes from loosening it. When you stop trying to manage everything and everyone, you make space for peace to flow in. You learn that you don't have to control outcomes to trust life. You stop wrestling with things that were never yours to fix, and you start resting in the quiet confidence that everything unfolds as it should. Silent strength is steady. It doesn't panic when tested or crumble under pressure. It's calm in confrontation and kind in misunderstanding. It doesn't demand recognition because it's not rooted in ego, it's rooted in wisdom. You don't need to prove you're right when you know you're aligned. You don't need to shout when your spirit already speaks clearly through peace. When you live from that place of quiet strength, nothing outside can shake you. You become the calm in the noise, the still point in the storm. You stop fighting for control and start flowing with purpose. That's not giving up, that's rising higher. In the end, peace isn't something you find, it's something you choose moment by moment. You can't stop the world from being loud, unfair, or unpredictable, but you can stop yourself from being pulled into it. The real battle has never been between you and others. It's between your higher self and your reaction. When you master that, when you stop letting people dictate your inner climate, you become untouchable. Not because you've built walls, but because you've built wisdom. Every insult, every irritation, every test is an invitation to rise, to pause, to return to yourself. That's where true power lies. You no longer need to prove, defend, or explain. You simply stand rooted in peace, so deep that nothing can move it. That's not apathy. It's awareness. It's divine strength. So let the world shout. Let others rage. You stay still, stay centered, stay free, because the one who rules their spirit is greater than the one who conquers a city. And when you reach that place where nothing outside can shake what's inside, you'll realize no one can take your peace unless you give it away.